FinTech or financial technology is ultimately looking at technology or innovation to transform financial services and make it more inclusive, make it more democratic, make it more effective, and also looking at areas where we can, for example, reduce cost and make the process more efficient as well. So it is ultimately bringing in technology and innovation to make financial services work better and work better for customers and clients.
So it's combining innovation and technology, pointing towards finance.
It is. I mean, it's really, I think, ultimately merging financial services or bringing financial services together with technology and advancements to look at how we can make financial services work better for people, for the customers, but also make the banks and the incumbents ultimately more efficient and more effective more broadly.
So in your campaign to transform financial services, are you encountering much opposition?
It's a really interesting question. I think COVID has had quite a significant impact on FinTech more broadly, because there's been a renewed understanding of how important technology is to all areas of our lives, but particularly when it comes to financial services. So we've seen, for example, here in the UK, through the C-bills and the B-bills loans, the key role that alternative lenders have played in getting some of these loans distributed out to the SMEs and ultimately supporting SMEs and individuals throughout the entire experience and throughout the entire pandemic. So I believe there's a renewed focus on the role that technology and FinTech plays in terms of transforming financial services. The Khalifa Review as well, which was very welcomed and was commissioned by government, by HMT specifically, shows that there is a very significant appetite and an understanding at the highest levels of government of how important FinTech is and how important the transformation of financial services is to make it more democratic.
And also, I suppose you're trying to promote financial inclusion.
We are, because ultimately, many of these technologies create the opportunity for more individuals to have access to these financial products, and also for these individuals to have access to financial products at the right times in their lives. So for many FinTechs, they are focused on data, on understanding data, on utilizing data to be able to provide a picture of an SME or of an individual to enable them to access these products at the relevant points in their lifetime.
Would you say FinTech makes us perhaps more resilient or is a better protection against financial crashes?
Well, I think the spirit of FinTech is really important to focus on when we think about financial services more broadly, because many will point to the 2007, the 2008 crisis as being the birth of a large slew of FinTechs being developed at that time, because there was a real frustration with the incumbents, with the financial services as it was back then, about not putting the customer at the center. So you suddenly had entrepreneurs developing, creating new models, creating new business models, creating new companies that put that customer back at the center of the proposition. And they were able to create bespoke engagement with the client, with the consumer. And for that reason, FinTech ultimately isn't necessarily protecting against crash, but what it is doing is ensuring that financial services puts the customer back at the center more broadly. So even in the face of the pandemic, it was really FinTechs that were able to come to the support of the wider ecosystem and for the wider society as well. And there was a time in March of April of last year where suddenly we were forced to go digital. The big banks had a real struggle in terms of moving their products online on a quick manner with literally almost no warning. And FinTechs were able to come in and fill that gap and provide some of these services either directly to the consumer immediately, or they're able to work with the incumbent financial institutions to facilitate them giving that same access to the consumer on a digital basis.
And you mentioned COVID. How much has the pandemic, you think, accelerated the FinTech boom? And how have your members been affected during the pandemic?
So the pandemic was a very difficult time for everyone. Particularly at the beginning, there was really no assurance as to where the pandemic would move to, as to what it would mean for broader financial services. But what it did do is underline the importance of technology, and especially when it comes to financial services. And it also underlined how important it is for financial services providers to be agile, to be flexible, to be able to pivot. And that's something that fintechs, by their very nature, are potentially stronger at than many of the incumbent financial institutions. And so in that way, there was a real focus shown on the absolutely critical role that fintechs could play in helping us all to navigate through to the end of the crisis.
So where are you going next with FinTech?
Well, we're at a really exciting time. I think the UK in particular is a global leader when it comes to fintech. We've just come out with numbers showcasing that we've had nearly 5.7 billion US dollars invested into the UK fintech ecosystem just in the first half of this year, which is groundbreaking and has broken all of our past records and is more than all of 2020 combined in terms of investment. So we're looking at a really positive future. In terms of regulation, we are at an inflection point because in a post-COVID environment, it's more important than ever before that we protect the consumer, but we also want to protect the consumer and enable some of these innovations to thrive, because it is the consumer that's benefiting from many of these new players, these new entrants, and these new technologies at the end of the day as well. So I think we've got an incredibly exciting future ahead of us. We are looking at new innovations happening in personal savings, in personal financial management, in investment as well, and really across the board.
Janine Hirt, CEO of Innovate Finance, many thanks for joining us here on The Agenda.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much, Stephen, for having me.